Trying to perfect my craft is honestly probably getting in more of my way than actually just doing it.
Yo, this is Katie Romero, who moved up to NYC from Texas by herself and has been sharing her discoveries of things to do in the city with her audience.
Because I also had to, I moved here with no friends. Like, I had days alone a lot, and it was like, I'm not gonna sit in my apartment where I can touch all four walls with my hand.
We grabbed N-Day in Midtown and talked about her experience of doing tech sales prior to this career shift.
I really hated sales. I hated my job. I cried at my desk, cried in my car. Like, it was a lot to get through.
And how that helped her transition into becoming a full-time content creator.
But definitely taught me so much to where I am now. So if I started doing content creation right out of school, I would be a mess.
Also, the importance of having a proxy when negotiating with deals.
What I've learned in sales, it's like nice to have that middleman.
Yeah, you need a proxy.
You need a proxy.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have one, make one up.
We've literally done that.
Yeah, we have
James Young. James Young.
James. You want to scream at someone? Scream at James.
Yeah.
People always call me out for speaking in a New York accent.
Yeah.
Do you speak did you grow up with like a Texan accent?
I mean, not really. Like, I'd used y'all a lot.
Right,
So
right.
when I moved to New York, so the first couple of weeks, when I moved into this apartment with these three other girls, one of the girls has lived in New York all her life. And I would be like, are y'all, like, y'all's, I would say it like plural. And she's like, y'all's already plural. And I was like, didn't even think about it.
Okay.
Or I would say, like, that's badass. And she's like, why do you sound like Kid Rock right now? Like, what? I was like, I don't know. And like, sneakers were tennis shoes, It was like, oh, my tennis.
Teddy shoes.
Tennis shoes.
Like tennis shoes, but tenny.
But tennis shoes.
Interesting.
Or like, where are my tennies? Like, I don't say that now, but for the first couple months, they were like, what did you just say? I was like, oh, my tennis shoes or my sneakers. Sneakers was not a thing.
Learning something new today. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So is that what you grew up saying though? Like,
yeah,
in
those are
Texas?
like the common words that I grew up saying. I probably had like a little bit more of like a Mexican accent, like the ahs and the a's and stuff like that, more than like a Texas accent. Like,
Right.
Everyone's always asked me that. Like, wow, you don't have an accent. It's like, what was I supposed to be like? Howdy, y'all. Like, what was I supposed to sound like?
Yeah.
So,
No, I was just curious because there's obviously regional accents. And,
no, for sure.
Because if you told me that, I grew up in like New York, especially with your meth bomber now,
Yeah,
like I'll be
let's
like,
go.
oh, like yeah, for sure. Like it seems like it totally makes sense. But, when I was combing through your info, I was like, oh, she's actually from Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you first moved to New York, and what did you ended up doing?
Yeah, so when I graduated college, I worked in sales. I graduated with a communication studies degree. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and sales was just an easy entryway into the corporate world.
What kind of sales?
I was doing tech sales. Austin's a hub for tech and startups and stuff like that. So I was working in tech sales and then moved to New York City and just looked for a job in tech sales. So that's what I was doing for 8 years before moving into the creative space.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You're the second creator that we've had on that worked in tech sales.
Yeah. Brian too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Brian.
yeah.
He worked for
Well, it's like
Salesforce,
we were talking about this on the phone call. It's like sales and content creation just translates really well in
How
terms
so?
of like your audience, right? Like, you want to know when I was selling, you learn how to figure out who you're speaking to because you want to connect with that person. They want to buy from you. It doesn't matter what you're selling. Like, I was selling software, hardware, things like that. Like, I could be selling a keyboard, but they want to buy from me. How can I connect with that person to get them to buy from me? Same with content creation, right? Like, how do you get invested in me? How am I going to speak directly to you? So it's understanding your audience, using analytics, like I was looking at numbers all day long. Like, what was my quota? How was I going to get there? What does that look like to get me to my goal? And also psychology, right? Like I said, understanding your audience, who you're speaking to, maybe shifting the way that you are to like get someone to understand you. Yeah. It all kind of correlates in that way.
After you breaking it down, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But, initially, I don't think I would have put the two and two together.
Yeah, it's so fun. It didn't happen until I started, really starting to create content to be like, oh, wow, the skills that I learned at this job that I hated, I didn't like it. I hated it, didn't like it. But learning all those skills has translated really well into content creation, especially since now it is my full-time job. It's my business.
When did it become your full-time job in your business?
Mentally, like a year ago.
Okay.
So I quit my job and was kind of like, I was burnt out. I was like, you know what? I'm starting to see some brand partnerships come in. I'm going to ride this wave, but I'm going to hang and then I'll start looking for jobs. And then I was like, another month went by, month went by. And I was like, wow, this could be something. And then I was like, all right, like, let's put my head down and make this a business, because it very much was just passion project, you know, hobbies, everyone says. And then when I was like, this is like, we can do something with this, and just like believing in myself and making sure that like, hey, I can be somebody in this space. Probably a year ago, yeah.
Were you sort of moonlighting?
In terms of like when I was working in sales and stuff like that?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I was full in on sales. Like, I have always been creative, have always loved exploring New York City. I've always had like an eye for certain things. Like, I love taking photos and posting them on Instagram, but I didn't take it seriously. It was just for me, you know? And so I've always like been interested in that. I loved writing. Like, I did that internship to be a writer. So it's always had like creativity in my bones, but never really thought that this is something that I could do full time. And then I got out of sales and started working for this startup that would text you things to do in New York City. And that was just like aligned perfectly with me. It was a friend of a friend that started the startup company, and I was dying in sales. And I was telling her, you know, like, I got to get out of sales. I don't know how to get out. Do I start like entry level marketing? Like, what is it going to look like? And she was like, hey, I actually have a friend that has a startup company that's looking to launch New York City, where they text you things to do in New York, and they want to have, you know, someone there to, one, create these itineraries of things to do, but also build the brand here. It would text you 3 times a week with like a detailed plan on something to do. And it was very specific about the time. So we made references to like a meme that was going on, or the weather, or a Super Bowl, like very cultural centered. And so, yeah, so got out of sales, started working for them, and launched New York City in January of 2020. And then the pandemic hit. And so we had to transition into like how to have fun at home. But that helped me understand brand building. It helped me understand copywriting, and also just like user behavior. You know, what were certain things people wanted to see? Feedback from users was super important. So I understood, you know, what your audience is telling you is actually so important, like comments and all that stuff. Now I'm just like, oh, wow, like I need to be hearing these things from my audience to understand what they want, but staying true to myself and like, this is what I want to show you too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now it all makes sense. It's great. I mean, in many ways, you got paid to learn and essentially established sort of the blueprint for what, at least what I'm seeing is what you do today, right?
Totally. Yeah. It definitely helped frame what I do today, but I would say I already had that in me. Like, I was already doing all these things. I was already running around New York City, creating itineraries pretty much just for myself, you know, because I also had to, you know, like, I moved here with no friends. Like, I had days alone a lot. And it was like, I'm not going to sit in my apartment where I can touch all 4 walls with my hands.
Totally.
Like, I'm going to go out and like, go, you know, eat by myself, or I'm going to go to a museum, or I'm going to go walk around for hours on end.
Totally.
And I just had to do that. And I just like created all that stuff for myself. So why not share it, is what I've come to today. I'm very much like an in-person person. So I did inside sales, I did outside sales. And I loved outside sales because I loved meeting the people that I was selling to, and just like having that connection. And when I'm behind, like when I'm, you know, through a screen, I'm like, I hope people can see, you know, that I'm actually truly excited to share this like street fair that I came across, or this like local business, you know.
I think all of it makes sense. Sales is storytelling, right? I've always said that, you know, facts tell, stories sell, right? If you're a real estate agent, you could say this is, you know, 200 square feet.
Yeah.
It's in New York. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Those are facts. But you
Yeah.
could say, hey, this is where you guys are going to build a business. This is where you're going to build an
100%.
empire. This is where you're going
Yeah.
to stand. Like you're essentially crafting a narrative and a story.
Totally.
And then we talk about that all the time. And we also talk about utility.
Yeah.
So, you know, the best sales is actually not what you can do for me, but what I can do for you.
100%.
What problem am I solving for you, right?
Yeah.
And anyone that sort of understands that, I think that's also like key in being able to really connect with an audience, right?
Yeah. When I get like in a rut with my content and stuff, I go back to those basics. You know, how can I solve someone's problem? What are these problems that they're facing? You know, is this, I go back to like trying to break it down to like pillars: educating, entertaining, or inspiring, and like go really drill into that, because there's so many different ways that you can take content. Sometimes I get overwhelmed and then I don't do anything. It's like analysis paralysis. So I have to go back to some of those key things that I've learned in my sales career to move forward.
Totally.
I also utilize what's trending. You know, my audience is 75% women in, you know, Gen Z, millennial. So I'm like, okay, what is going on in the cultural zeitgeist that is trending right now that I can really, you know, speak to, because that's what people are top of mind of. Oh, everyone likes charm bracelets now. Okay, let's go find some like shops that sell charms. I'm constantly consuming content and utilizing that, and then turning it around to create my content. and just seeing, what are people interested in, because that's the way that I'm like probing the internet to kind of understand, who I'm speaking to in that sense. But I'm also the girl that I'm speaking to, like very much the content that I'm making is for me. I would want someone to tell me these things. I would want to know about these, vintage shops that are happening, or this like small business that's having to pop up on Saturday. Like those are the things that I want to know. The beauty of content creation is so exciting. It's all yours and yours to create, but it's nonstop. I don't turn off. I'm on a run and I'm thinking of a hook. I'm talking out loud while I'm at home trying to figure out, what's going to get people hooked on something. And yeah, I'm always constantly thinking. I'm on the street and I'm looking around. I'm like, oh, wow, lots of girls are wearing these bows in their hair. Bows are trending. I go to stores. I love window shopping. I think everyone always dogs me for like always posting about shopping. But I'm like, I'm not even spending. Like I'm going to like see what stores are putting in their windows, and like what's actually, like I'll ask them like, what's their best seller? Like what are people gravitating towards? And it kind of helps me align to like see, what are the things that people are looking for and how I can help those people find them, because people are looking for them. I have the proof.
That's a very great programming idea for shopping content. I never even thought about that. Like actually going into the stores and talking to the staff.
Well, yeah, it's like the best way to connect too. And I learned so much more when I chat with these store owners, it's like, and I start to like love them, which comes to the part of I want to buy it from people I love. Yeah. And so that's happened to me with so many different stores where I just like chat with the owner. Sometimes I'll tell them what I do. And then, we'll be chatting there for like 30 minutes. And it helps me create the content because I have some passion behind it, have some feeling behind it, because I've heard their story. Very similar to the content you do.
Yeah. So do you have like some sort of a programming strategy in terms of how you approach the content, or is it more like, what am I going to make today?
Yeah, I can be better about being strategic, to be honest. That's something that's definitely been a struggle in terms of how I approach my content. I could probably have a strategic planning day in my schedule. Some days it's like random. Going out just to like go out. I'll have a neighborhood I pick and just go and bop around.
Do you set any sort of metrics or like KPIs or OKRs for yourself? I mean, you're from the sales world, right?
Yeah.
So like, do you have an output goal?
Yeah, it's hard. It's like I go back and forth between, is it followers? Is it, like counts? I don't really know exactly what that looks like for me. And I think that's been like one of my hardest struggles has been like, I guess the only way that I see success is through numbers. And that's hard for me to digest as someone who's their own boss, working for themselves. That's been one of my biggest struggles, I would say, coming from a sales background where like, if I hit my quota and exceeded my quota, I was doing great.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, does anyone care about me? I don't know. Like this video tanked and I thought it was going to be great. What does that look like for me and what I'm putting out there?
Do you have output goals in terms of how many videos you're uploading, how frequently?
Once a day, I would say. I mean, primarily I'm on TikTok, so I try to say one video a day on TikTok. Mm-hmm. Now I'm expanding into Instagram, so I'm trying to make sure that I'm posting one video a day on Instagram.
Do you repurpose the videos from TikTok to Instagram?
Now I'm starting to do that. Well, I guess like I edit in CapCut, and then I've been doing 2 different voiceovers, but I just started posting on Instagram. Like I was ignoring Instagram for a long time.
Well, I saw it. I see a lot of the comments. They're like, oh, so we were posting on Instagram now?
Yeah.
I'm curious why. Why did you not?
I honestly,
it
was like a mental game. It was like a weird thing. Like I created this audience on TikTok and I felt like it was a very safe space. And Instagram to me was just like, this is just my little coloring book. I post my like fun little photos and like run away and go to TikTok, and that's my business. And now, just literally like 4 days ago, started posting on Instagram, already grew like almost 3,000 followers. Like it's crazy. I was like, oh, shit, like there is an audience here that I need to cultivate. I just haven't given that attention, and I was scared, to be honest.
Yeah. By the way, do you have a team? It sounds like you're editing it all
yourself.
yourself.
Everything's me. Yeah, okay. So like my team is my management team. So I have a manager and like an account coordinator that works with me. So that's been super helpful. That's been in the last 4 months that I've had an account management team with deals and just like, I mean, I was signing contracts just like there's, take my life, don't care, I was just excited that brands that I have admired for so long wanted to work with me, know, so signed it in blood, take it, and now I'm like, okay, there's so many other things that I could be doing strategically with a management team that has the knowledge, that has the background. But I went through probably 3 different rounds of trial periods with managers, and I just didn't connect with them. And again, want to bring it back to sales. Like I wanted her to be a dog. Like I was like, you gotta be hungry, like all the trials that I had with these managers, I was just like, you don't get paid until I get paid. Like let's work together. And it just didn't feel the hunger from them. And again, that's like my competitiveness, sports background. I'm like,
Are they
let's get it.
managers or are they agents?
So it's a talent agent.
Okay.
I guess I don't know really what the difference is.
Huge difference. Manager is much more, long. Their outcomes and their vision is much more long term. Right?
Gotcha.
So they're very much like, okay, you're in New York right now.
Yeah.
What's the next city? What's the next project? What's this going to look like in 5 years, 10 years?
Yeah.
And they just have a much more holistic view
Yeah.
of what you're working on.
Yeah.
An agent's job is exactly the opposite in that your job is to try to maximize today.
Yeah.
And it's not like your outcomes are not measured in like a 10-year payout.
Yeah.
It's literally measured in like the next 10 days, next 10 months.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
Yeah. So basically, like as you said, an agent is, the more you hunt, the more you kill.
Yeah.
We get to eat.
Yeah.
But there's a timeline
Yeah.
on how much this agent could essentially capitalize on this IP.
Yeah.
Right. And 18 months later, the agent could move on to the next Katie Romero.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas a manager is like, nah, let's build a business together.
Got it.
So
Okay.
that we could look at this 5 years down the line.
Also, as a manager, if you do have a more holistic approach and a view of things, you're like, you know what? I actually might say no to this brand deal right now, even though it's paying me.
Yeah.
Because I want to save that opportunity.
Yeah.
For a bigger opportunity later on down the line. But again, an agent's job is very much like, you're going to get paid today on what
Yeah.
you can kill and eat today. So let's do this. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's really about maximizing it. We always look at things in the lens of like three. It's either brand, audience, or revenue. Every
Totally.
partnership should be either brand, audience, or revenue. Right?
Yeah.
It's a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
The perfect deal, it's with the credible partner.
Yeah.
It gets you paid and it's going to get you in front of millions of people. Right.
Yeah.
That's sort of the perfect thing.
Yeah.
But if you're a manager and you look at that, you're like, you might be doing something for free.
Yeah.
But guess what? You're doing it with like a super reputable organization,
Yeah.
right? We'll do something. We did a project with
The Mets.
the Mets or with Meta, right? Meta and the UN.
Yeah.
So Instagram and the UN are working on some like local project, travel project.
Yeah.
They didn't pay us that much.
Yeah.
But we said yes, absolutely, because now we get Meta, we get Instagram as a logo
Yeah.
in our portfolio of partners that we worked with,
Yeah.
and we worked with the UN as well, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, but if an agent was looking at that, they're like, nah, you're not paying, we're not going to do it.
Totally. Yeah. So I have an agent. Not really like a manager.
Yeah.
I mean, she's kind of like hybrid. We do have those conversations and
Yeah.
stuff like that strategically, but in terms of looking at 5 years down the road, that's something that is very, very foggy to me.
Yeah, and it's fine. It can be, but like, yeah, just to proactive. It's like your journey right now might be, hey, here's how you find an apartment, or here's how you adapt to New York.
Yeah.
Like I've March will be the 10-year mark for me, right? But in what's your 10-year plan towards like, okay, well, guess what? It might be finding an apartment on Craigslist, a sight unseen, but like in 5 years, it's going to be, how do you find the best mortgage in whatever city you might be in? You know what I'm saying? Whether
Yeah.
it's here in New York or whatever.
Totally.
It's like, it's just planning for those types of things.
Exactly. And I think that's something that like I've pigeonholed myself into New York and very much like have created this sense of like, yeah, local New York, but what does that look like long term? How can I get out of that? And really show all the different sides of me is something that's definitely been on my mind for the last couple months.
I think what would be super helpful for the people watching or listening would be like, how did you know that you needed a manager, and what was that process like?
Yeah, I think that, again, making sure that I was understanding the deals that I was signing and from a legality standpoint, that part, but also just like I need the help in terms of hunting because I was just using everything that was coming into my inbox, and that was
inbound.
That was all inbound,
Yeah.
all inbound. Everything that I've done, and I've been extremely grateful to work with brands that were all inbound. And then I was like, all right, let's like start utilizing somebody that can help me there. So that's one of the reasons why I move forward with the manager or with the talent agent, but also I think just some credibility, also like from a psyche standpoint, to kind of make me feel like, you got this. You have like people are confident enough to like want to work with you. So let's take that step forward with an agent.
So did you reach out to agencies? Or
It was all incoming.
Okay.
Or inbound, sorry. Yeah.
And then, so you vetted three, all three reached out to you, and
All three
then
reached out to
tell us. sort of the vetting process? What were your tests for them?
Yeah, I mean, like when I first met them, I was just like, I wanted to see like their understanding of the market and like what contacts they had, like,
Perfect.
we're both trying to understand what we can do for each other. Right. So it's like, all right, who have you worked with? What's your roster look like? What exactly, what are your KPIs for yourself? And like thinking like that. Again, I try to translate everything that I've learned from sales and be like, okay, this is a partnership, but like we also need to have strict goals. And then we would sit down and put strict goals and what I needed from them, and also personality, like do we get along? Do we mesh in that sense? So those were some of the goals that I had for
That's
them.
amazing. And then in terms of roster and brand, how much of it was you want overlap and you want people that they already work with that you're like, oh, totally, it makes sense? And how much did you want it to be different?
I think I wanted more overlap than different, honestly. I think it just made me feel more sense of security that they were the experts in that space. And I wanted to know like they had some good people on their roster that I actually really appreciate their content. Yeah.
That's amazing. What's the biggest change that you've seen now that you work with them?
I think deal size in terms of like getting larger amounts from brands. Also like not being afraid to ask for more money when certain things go wrong. So we had like a brand send us a totally wrong CTA, created the video, sent the video out, and then was like, oh no, this is the wrong CTA. She got me like $500 or more for like an edit that wasn't supposed to be in the contract, that, things that I was like, oh shit, I would have never have asked for that. I would have bent over and been like, oh yeah, sorry. Like that was my fault. I read the wrong CTA or something like that. So utilizing that from a price like or like money standpoint. And then I think that just, again, making sure that this is a business, keeping this top of mind for me, that you are like building something. So like we have a strategic call every 2 weeks and talk about, ways that we're going to capture more market, or also having like a sounding board. It's a very isolating environment, content creation, and if you're used to being around a team or being around people, having that helps a lot. So having those strategic calls where I can just like blurt out all my ideas and just have some sort of feedback has been really, really helpful in the last couple of months.
You don't have to say the exact amount, but from a percentage standpoint, have they 2 extra deals, 3 extra deals, 10 extra deals?
I would say recently 2x. Again, this is the 4 months that we've been working together, and the holidays was a little bit tough last year. And everything, again, it's been inbound. So they've only brought maybe like 1 or 2 deals to me from their Rolodex.
Interesting.
Yeah. But that was a conversation we had, right? It was like, okay, what is this going to look like if I do sign on with you? What is the expected amount of deals that you're going to bring me as opposed to I'm bringing you?
Yeah.
Nice. And did you set a percentage to that?
Yeah. Like we had a conversation before moving forward of like, what does this actually look like?
That's
so
amazing.
I can be aware, because also it's just hard, like what does success look like for us, so.
What does success look like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it was, again, more around like deal size and making sure that I'm 2xing, 3xing my deals. And then keeping me in line with all the communication. I mean, the emails were just crazy.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not a organized person.
Totally.
Like, don't look at my inbox right now. It's scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I needed that help where I could just send it off and have that communication. Also, what I've learned in sales, it's like nice to have that middleman. So like working directly with the brand when things were going around, like when, edits were being made, it's nice to have someone else deal with that communication.
Yeah, you need a proxy.
You need a proxy.
Yeah.
Even if you don't have one, make one up. Make up a fake email.
We've literally done that.
Yeah. We have
James Young. James Young.
You want to scream at someone? Scream at James.
Yeah.
What are we
What are
getting?
you ordering?
So Indie, it's like
Indie.
You've been to Indie?
No.
It's like fast casual Indian spot in Flatiron. It's like where I used to go to all the time when I was in the corporate world. So good. So good. They changed though their whole like setup to be like all dine out and take out and stuff like that.
What'd you do?
I got the coconut rice.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What's your 5-year dream?
Oh my gosh, that's funny. I was going to ask you okay, how should I plan my 5 years?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, my 5-year dream is to continue working for myself, continue doing something in creative space. Could I pinpoint exactly what that is? No, I don't know.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Let's talk openly about what you're interested in. Because I think one thing that we want to do with this podcast is obviously there's the interview part, but also we want to just have an open conversation about how we could be helpful.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
you've mentioned that it's a lonely job, right?
Totally.
So often, you check in with your agent every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But the rest of the week, you're essentially just
I'm on my own.
having all these ideas by yourself without having a sounding board. And we want to be very helpful with that.
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
if you have ideas, share it with us. And
For sure.
you know, again, you get final cut.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that you don't want to even put out there, or like, yo, if there's like certain amounts that you want to ask, it's like, yo, I got paid this much. What do you guys think? And we're open to having those discussions as well.
Yeah, it's so nice to have that. There's like a content creator group, like a New York City Things to Do content creator group on Instagram that I was in, and we would do those things and help each other out and honestly kind of share price points of like what everyone was going, if they were going for the same deal.
You're about to
like,
unionize?
It was hilarious. I was like, oh wow, we're really doing this in here. But it was nice to see that transparency because everyone wants to like help each other win. But I think like there's only so much you can do in an IG chat. You know, it's different when you have someone maybe dedicated to you or maybe just more knowledgeable. It's all a bunch of content creators. We're all on the same level, but having somebody more knowledgeable is great. And then like mentoring and things like that. I've had like so many people that I wanted to reach out to and I just haven't, and been like, okay, today's the day. I don't know. I want to be strategic when I reach out to people because people reach out to me all the time too. And it's like, I want to make sure that I'm utilizing their time the best, you know? So I'm like, she was doing like a little food crawl with her daughter. And I was like, you know what? I should be like, let me take on a food crawl, but also pick your brain. You know, I'm trying to I always want to make sure that I'm conscious of like people's time.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's very, that's,
You just gave away free game. We talk about this all the time. I think so many people reach out to us without knowing what the ask is.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're clear in your ask, so you could say, you know, Katie, you could reach out and say, hey, I see that you're connected with this person. Are you close to that person? If you're not, or if you are, would you mind setting up a warm intro because I'm trying to accomplish this?
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
That ask is super easy.
Yeah.
Right? And you can get to a yes or no.
Yeah.
But oftentimes what happens to both of us is, Jakey, can you help me?
Yeah.
Help you with what?
Yeah.
Like I if you don't know what I can help you, like I don't know what the ask is.
Yeah.
like, give me something that I could react to.
I guess so. Like, what's your biggest need right now? How can you 10x?
I mean, just like the conversation that we're having right now has been, like wheels are now turning to be like, I gotta look future. I've been very much like day to day to day. This has been like, oh, this is exciting, and like, how do I look strategically into the future 5 years? I'm 33, you know, am I going to be doing this in my 40s? Like, what does that look like? So looking far ahead and trying to figure out what's going to be the lay of the land and get ahead of it. I love being ahead of like what's coming next. Mm-hmm. I want to know, I want to be in it. So yeah, so a 5-year plan, like how can I be strategic in that sense?
Do you have any ideas that's going in your head or anything that you've wanted to do that you haven't been able to execute on? Or
great question.
Like if you have anything that you want to share, maybe we could just bounce ideas around.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really sharing. It's like some part of it is more personal. It's more like being vulnerable on the internet. There's like so much more that I want to connect with people on that's not just New York City recommendations. You know, I find that like my New York City recommendation videos will take off. When I talk to the camera about something personal, it dies. You know, like how do I continue making that more integrated and where people know me and like me, but also see all the different sides of me. So it's like, one, getting the courage to share, right? Like it's hard. But two, also being strategic about how I'm sharing and how I'm connecting with my audience and making that more part of my brand.
Have you done that?
I've tried a few videos and they don't take off and I get sad.
Yeah, no, listen.
And I'm like, damn, you know, I was talking about body image online, you know, being a single woman. I've been single for 12 years and people always die with that fact. So I get a lot of like single girls asking me like what that's like to, you know, not have like an adult relationships, like relationship questions. How can I talk about that more? But I just get in my head. You know,
thank you so much for saying this because listen, it's so funny that you mentioned this. We had another friend of ours, Lydia.
Yeah.
She was talking about this exact same thing. And I've went through this multiple times myself. So when I first started on TikTok, I was known as the Asian guy with the deep voice cooking during the pandemic.
Yeah.
So once I stopped making cooking videos, once I started dabbling into the Righteous Eats territory, the people that started following me for cooking were like, yo, can you cook again? And now they know me as, you're the food guy. You know? And if I'm posting about running, if I'm posting about anything else that is beyond how they want to categorize me, it's like once they feel like, yo, you're not providing the utility that I need, this transactional relationship is not something that is fruitful for me to continuously support you by a follower, like
Totally.
which is what I feel like a lot of creators, especially in siloed algos, like and for platforms like TikTok, is what we go through, right? And this is something that we have open conversations about all the time. Like, yo, how can we figure out a through line for this? Because if we really want to build a community, that real community has to be beyond the people that just wants to find you as a platform to just provide recommendations. They need to connect with you. They need to know you.
You got to make that commitment, number one.
For sure.
2, if you make that commitment, you can strategically figure out how to weave it in organically as possible and make that a business.
Totally. And I think my problem has always been step 1. It's making that commitment, following through. You know, sometimes I'll make the commitment, but then it falls off, you know, or I started and then I don't see the result I want. And I'm like, and I'm out. You know, so I always go back to like sales in terms of the 7 touch points. It's always like, it takes like 7 touch points for you to actually make a sell or actually get that person on a call. So I'm like, all right, man, you probably posted 3 videos and that didn't work. Well, you got to post 3 more and maybe that'll work again. You just got to make it more of a practice than trying to make it perfect.
For sure. So even that 7 touch points, it's like the first video might be just a regular roundup or like a exploration together in this part of the city or what to do, one itinerary, right? But you dropped 1 line about this is a great date spot. And then the 4th video has, you know, a little bit more. And then the 5th video, then the 6th, then the 7th video is the full on like, here's what I'm doing with, you know, we're very intentional.
Like I gotta actually date.
It's like a constructing your narrative.
No, for sure. And I get so in my head about storytelling. I've like listened to podcasts. I'm like reading books on like how to be a better storyteller because I'm like, damn, some of these girls get on there, put on their makeup and tell like an insane story. And I'm like, how the hell do they do that? You know, like trying to perfect my craft is honestly probably getting in more of my way than actually just doing it.
100%.
I'm like, it's just like hard, you know? And then
I mean, to use a sports analogy, it's just about getting your touches.
No, for sure.
Like, I mean, even if you miss that shot, take another shot. Because the more shots you take, the likelihood of you making more shots increases.
I mean, I go back to thinking in 2010 or 2011. I graduated in 2012 and I had like a list of blog names. So I've always wanted to do something like this. And I'll go back to these like old Canvas that I have and I'll look at all these blog names that I wanted to start and never did.
Right.
Even when I talk to people that I went to like college with or my first job, they're like, oh, you do content creation now? Like, yeah, makes sense. Like you should have been doing that, you know? So it's like I had all that friction, you know, I really hated sales. I hated my job, cried at my desk, cried in my car. Like it was a lot to get through. But definitely taught me so much to where I am now. So if I started doing content creation right out of school, I would be a mess, you know? I wouldn't have the skills. I wouldn't have the capability to do what I'm doing now. I'm still learning about myself and I'm like, oh shit, I have to work through a lot of this to get through this. Because a lot of it is mental for me.
Yeah, I could relate with you 100%. Yeah. Like I'm so glad that I decided to take upon this new career shift in my 30s.
Yeah.
If I started this in my 20s, like you, like I don't think I would have known what I was doing.
Yeah. And I see all these little young bucks right out of college, and I'm like, you don't understand, you don't get it, you know, like
that's also what makes them good.
I know, which pisses me off.
A part of this is like not knowing how hard it is.
Totally.
Right. Or how
because it makes them fearless.
Exactly.
Well, that fearlessness sometimes works to your benefit.
Yeah, I've just started like going through therapy for the last 6 months and my therapist is fucking awesome. And she was telling me fear is the memory of pain. And I was like, oh shit, like that just like hit me so hard. I was like, yeah, I'll stop doing something because I remember how painful it was. Or like I remember, you know, it goes back to that place where I don't want to go through that again. And she's like, that's all it is. It's just a memory, you know, like once you get past that, that's not the reality. And I was like, okay, mind blown. So it helps me so much when trying to embark on new stuff.
Yeah. So right now, like, what do you want to do, like, content wise? Is there anything that you want to like lean into?
Honestly, I mean, like, I'm like, do I have to do YouTube? Like, holy shit, you know, I'm taking all this in. Like, I just started posting on Instagram, which is hilarious to me. But like, is it time to do a YouTube channel? I'm also like, I don't like being in front of the camera. I love being behind the scenes. Like, the way that my soul lights up is like images and shots and sharing local spots and like hearing stories. Meeting people. I do meetups and stuff. And so I started doing meetups, and that ignited me a little bit more, meeting my audience and things like that. So like, is it more in-person events that takes time, that takes money? Like, what does that look like? On my whiteboard, I have all of the things. So I have the things that light me up, and then the things that I want to do strategically, they're going to make me money.
Who shows up to your meetups right now?
It's predominantly female. It is women, Gen Z, millennial. I get a lot of people that just moved to New York City. So a lot of women looking for friends, looking for community. I do these meetups at an art cafe, Happy Medium Art Cafe in Two Bridges. So I make sure it's an activity. They paint watercolors for 2 hours and chat. And like music to my ears when I can hear everyone talking. You know, it's like I feel super isolated, and the internet can be like a soulless place. But then when a girl comes up to me and says like, you know, your solo day helped me like have a day in New York when I just wanted to sit at home, or like me and my boyfriend did your date idea the other night. Like, I'm like, hell yeah. Okay. Like this drives me to be like, let's create some more, you know, like let's keep going. Cause I've had so many moments where I'm like, throw the phone in the East River and be like, I'm done. You know, I don't want to do this anymore.
Can you talk about some like comps or other folks that are doing stuff that you're inspired by? Because it seems like there's a lot. Is there a comp in terms of like in 5 years, in 10 years, I would love to be a version of this, or I really admire what they've built?
Yeah, there's a few creators. I mean, like honestly, Jakey, you're one of them, right? Like having that like strong community sense, and like the people that fight for you, you know, like the amount of tags that Righteous Eats gets is bananas. You know, it's like, I want someone to see something and immediately think of me. Having that like brand recognition is really great. But having that audience to stand by you is huge. There's a creator named Nara Smith. She cooks. She just makes things so beautifully, but she just like shares in a really beautiful way that it's like, it's a beautiful image, but it's also a great story. My other friend, Olivia, she does like non-alcoholic drink mocktails, and she's like a huge creator, but she shares a really amazing personal story. And I'm like, man, I wish I could storytell like that. You know, I connect with her story while watching her make a mocktail. You know, I'm like, I'm in tears while she's like pouring like, you know, pineapple juice in a cup. I'm like, damn, that moved me. Would love to do that. There's so many creators, and of course I'm blanking, but I do love the community aspect of having that connection.
Well, is it like a Shonda Rhimes or like a I don't know, The Rock or someone like that? What's the wildest?
I mean, Issa Rae, dude, she's like the best, you know, like
What about
all
Issa?
The things,
because she's writing.
Because she's writing, she's creating, she's behind the scenes, you know, like I think everything that she does and just the way that she talks about herself, like she has a shit ton of confidence. Like she's like, yeah, I did this all on my own, and it's okay to say that I'm proud of myself, you know, like I have a hard time saying that, like, I did this, you know, I built this. I'm very much like, no, like don't. But I like saying that like, yo, you built this and you're going to continue building this is something that like I need to work on, but like that people are doing that inspires me to be like that.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, she does everything. It's crazy.
Yeah.
She's funny and
she started off as a YouTuber.
Yeah. Oh, really? I didn't even know she started at YouTube.
Yeah.
I mean, her show was just initially.
Her show is basically just her YouTube.
Oh, yeah. But I didn't know she started there. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us? Like, is there any specific questions that we could answer for you?
Yeah, I mean, the like I mentioned, is it going to be focusing on like what the new platform is? You know, short form video, I guess, didn't come out of nowhere, but like, how do you be ahead of the game like that in 5 years? What is that looking like, and what's that first step to take in terms of the creator space for the next 5 years?
Well, yeah. So I think there's like two tracks, right?
Yes.
The first track is very operational.
Okay.
And how can you make sure that your audience that you're growing on TikTok, you're now growing on Instagram, now growing on YouTube, literally becomes your audience.
Okay.
And I think especially with the type of content that you make, it's like, you know, how can you like data capture? How can you literally make sure that like you have their email? It's something as simple as that.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, it's funny that you worked for the Nudge, but like, you know, I'm a huge fan of Community, right? You know, the program Community, the
text program.
Text.
Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Because, you know, so we talk about this all the time. Instagram or TikTok is the worst actually, but like TikTok, you might have 1 million followers, but you might get served to 1% of that audience if you're lucky, right? Because it's FYP, right?
Yeah.
Like that's how people consume there.
Yeah.
So like a 0.01% conversion is good, right? Instagram, probably 1% is good.
Okay.
Right? if you have a newsletter, if you have someone's email, an open
Well, that's
rate,
what I'm saying. Is it a newsletter? I just created a Substack, and again, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. You know, what does that even look like?
Yeah.
Is this the right direction? Because it takes a shit ton of time to like put that valuable information into a Substack. So
yes, I think with the type of
Okay.
content that you're doing right now, I think collecting emails, number one, is like
Collecting emails.
super easy for
Yeah.
you. Like the thing is, again, your video might not even be getting served to everybody. And you're like, a call to action could be, hey, in case you missed it, like if you never want to miss my recommendations, here it is.
Got it.
It's so organic to what you're doing already, right?
Totally. Yeah.
You know, that's also the thing that you can use to promote your next event.
Yeah.
Promote your book, your merch, whatever you might want to do, like having that data capture. So there's the like operational sort of like stuff that you can do on the blocking and tackling side.
Yeah.
And then I think the thing that we get more excited about is like, okay, well, where can this go? What's the craziest version of this, right? In terms of like your addressable market. We think a lot about addressable markets, right? So like you're in New York right now, we think about psychographics a lot, and we're like, okay, cool. So someone just moving to New York, probably in their 20s, probably figuring out, starting their career.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool. How big is that pool?
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Right? How big is that pool? How big is the pool for, you know, athletes? How big is the pool for, you know, you're Mexican American, right? Like, dude, that's a huge
Huge.
huge
Shout out to Fools Gone Wild.
yeah, it's huge, right?
Yeah,
so how do you
taking over.
Yeah, no, totally. And then there's opportunities within that too. We're always looking out for that. It's like, thank you for sharing about therapy. I also new to therapy,
Mental health.
Yeah.
Right? But by the way, that's an area where I'm super bullish. I don't think enough communities have normalized that yet.
For sure.
Right? So like that's an opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So we think a lot about these things, and
course.
and that's where I would start to. So like, there's the day-to-day. How can I better block and tackle and maximize the things that I'm building right now? And then it's like, what are the opportunities outside of that that I should be seeding now that will bear fruit in 5 years? Right. And I think it's all of those things. Right. So my questions would be like, what do you want to do? Who are the comps? Now that I know Issa Rae is one of them, cool. If this was like, even if we weren't recording, I would just want to know more about you, more about like, you have siblings, what like all of that kind of stuff. Right. Because it's like, okay, cool. So if I get a good chance to see who you are, then we could start to have all these other things, you know?
And I one thing that I want to suggest is, even if that particular video where you share about who you are might get crickets now, if there's a strategy for the long term, like for instance, like you share about how you was a D3 collegiate athlete, playing on the pitch. Okay, people might be like, yo, like I don't care. Right. But maybe there's like 100 people that do care and that do remember. And then further down the line, you occasionally lean into that content. And what's to say that you might not be able to build a relationship with the MLS?
Yeah, I mean,
that could
did
lead
NYCFC, and that was huge.
Exactly. Yeah,
and it was funny because their email was like, "We're looking for a female, Latina."
Did you work with Rob? Ricardo?
Well, I worked with an agency through their agency.
Yeah.
And then
I'll put you in touch with Rob.
Well, I literally emailed my agent a couple of days ago and was like, "Yo, with the FIFA announcement, like this is gonna be so top of mind. Like, let's get them back going."
Do you actually follow up with soccer or football, like however you?
I mean, I watch every like the big events and stuff, but I'm not like super zoned in. But like I know the rules, you know. It's like I grew up playing sports, so like I know all the rules. But yeah, those are like that is exactly what I'm looking for in that sense. But it was nice when I saw that email come through and it was like, this is what we're looking for in someone interested in sports.
Yeah, for sure.
You know?
But that deal should start as an NYFC deal and then go to an Apple deal because Apple has the streaming rights.
With MLS.
With MLS, right?
Yeah.
And that should turn into, I mean, again, who cares if you have
I'm like, damn, there's so much more.
But if you have like, but I think the bigger point is like, you might have crickets, but it's worth it in that, like, if you're an athlete and you do go on runs, you can incorporate like, here's a good running thing that I think that'll do well.
Yeah.
But that's to seed like a Strava partnership.
Yeah. I'm now an ambassador for Strava. It was just great. That happened in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So that just happened in the last couple of weeks. I have a partnership with Brooks coming up.
Nice.
But those were the things that I was sharing online too. Like, hey, I see everyone running on the West Side Highway. That's boring. We can do so much better. So I was doing a series of like places to run in New York City that are not the West Side Highway. Yeah. Also places to run for a female that you're not going to be scared, you know? Like I would get questions like that from girls being like, is this a safe route? And I'm like, yeah, it's a safe route. You know, it's lit and stuff like that. So like, but those were the things that I was thinking, like those are the things that people are, or the women that follow me are thinking about, you know? But also getting like empowered to go for a run on your own or do things solo. My solo series always kills. Like doing solo days in New York City. It's also mind blowing to me how people are like so afraid to eat alone, go do something by themselves.
Yeah. Do you speak Spanish?
Un poquito.
Okay, gotcha.
I'm Mexican, not Mexican.
Okay, gotcha.
My household growing up was like, you're American. You know, my name is Katie. You know, we very much are Mexican, and my mom's fluent, my dad's not. You know, it's a different immigrant household. You know, like I'm third generation.
Yeah. No, but that's a huge community of its own, right? I mean, 100%. In New York, the immigrants are usually first and second because a lot of them are from Puebla. Yeah. They're not like norteña. Yeah. You know, they're not from like Baja, like where they have generational roots to like California and Texas. Yeah. Which is a whole different breed of Mexican Americans.
100%. Yeah. I mean, Tex-Mexican. And like, Texas Mexicans, wholly.
I mean, you guys are like Italian Americans that live in like Staten Island. Like they don't speak Italian. You know what I mean? Like,
and then not only like not non-Spanish speaking Mexicans, but also the broader market of like all the like we have a series called Spanish Sessions, right? Yeah. With Rob. Have you seen it?
No.
So it's literally Rob is Puerto Rican and Italian. Yeah. He grew up in Long Island. Same thing.
Yeah.
I didn't even know the term until I came, but like he's a no sabo kid. Yeah. Right? Yeah. And then he got inspired to learn Spanish. Yeah. So now his thing is being vulnerable and practicing Spanish. Yeah. And we made a whole thing and we leaned into that, right?
Yeah. What content creation has also taught me is identity and leaning into your identity. For a long time, I suppressed being Mexican because I was surrounded by a lot of white people and wanted to be white and wanted to fit in that sense, you know? And so with presenting myself on social, I very much have leaned into being like, oh, I need to be proud of who I am. It's also nice to be like, hey, a Latina girl can be watching you and feel like, okay, I can see someone that looks like me.
For sure.
And that has helped me a lot. It's been a struggle because it's like something that's been encoded for me all my life to be like, okay, this is something that you want to celebrate, not suppress. And so, content creation has helped me a lot with that, with identity. But it is something that you learn while you're posting.
And the reason why I bring it up also is because we just think that this is something that you have a world-class advantage of, right?
Yeah.
Because you also want to be able to create your own lane that other people can't, necessarily touch. So for instance, you said that, man, I wish I could be a better storyteller, right? Like some of these other creators that you follow. Yeah, maybe you might not be the best storyteller in that particular lane, but if you talk about your own identity, like that's something that your friends who might be really great at just sharing an anecdote might not be able to have any access to just because of who you are.
For sure.
And that's something that, like for instance, I speak 100% fluent Korean, and I've never made like Korean focused content really just because of bandwidth for now. But I slide it in there. You know what I mean? I just let people know, don't get it twisted. You know what I mean? Your boy got it on lock. And it opened up a huge addressable market for me because, Korean Americans were like, oh shit, like you speak fluent Korean, and also I could. Korea becoming such a huge pop culture like destination right now. Whenever I make content in Korea, whenever I make content in Seoul, it's like almost like a hack at this point. Like I know it's gonna go off.
Yeah.
And I could say the same thing about, we could talk about the gentrification of Mexico City and a lot of things happening over there. But, like if I'm looking at you from a narrative standpoint, like, yo, I'm a Mexican American, third, fourth generation who never really had close roots to my culture.
Totally.
But I actually made my first visit to the motherland.
Yeah.
Like, when I visited Mexico City for the first time in 2017, and I was posting content about Mexico City, like so many of my homies in New York who can't go back to Mexico because of their visa status.
Yeah.
They were like all up in my DMs like, yo, that's crazy that you're connecting with, even though the border is so close, it's worlds apart. Totally. You know what I mean? And yeah, it was just something that as soon as I heard of, your ancestry, I was like, oh, like,
Yeah.
it's a huge content opportunity here as well.
No, for sure. I mean, I very much am proud that is my background, and how can I utilize that, and how can I, bring that to light more. It's helped me, again, embrace, but also like get excited about sharing that. Like you posted about Border Town, and like the minute I saw it, I was like, I need those tortillas in my life right now. I went the next day.
Yeah.
I waited in line for 3 hours, by the way.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But I was like, oh, this tastes like my grandma. Like
That's
that
amazing.
feels amazing. That feels so good. And I posted a video and was like, as a fellow Latina, I had to run out here and support, talk to my dude that was making, all the food, and was just like, this feels good. Yeah. And I want to share.
For sure. We want to be a resource for you. How else can we be helpful?
Okay, so what's one thing that I should do the second I leave this room, get back home? What's going to be my next step?
I think you should make 1 and 5 year SMART goals for you. Do you know what a SMART goal is?
No, I don't know what a SMART goal is.
So SMART goals are simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed, right? Okay. So many people will say something like, I want to get in good shape.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I want to start running. What does that mean? Those goals aren't really goals unless they're simple, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timed. So it's like a Harvard Business Review thing, but it's like, okay, cool. I want to be able to run a 10K by November in this time. Yeah. That's much more, the plan for that is going to be much better than I want to be a runner, right? The plan for, and so in the context of being a content creator, it's like, okay, it's like, oh, I want to make more content. No, it has to be, I want to make 55 pieces of content by this time. Got it. So, and it should be try to, I think even that for so many people that make content, it's like so foreign to them because, our thesis is that like content creators are going to be the biggest entities. Like they're going to be the biggest, they're going to be at the, like if you're as a business, if you can't connect and create and constantly engage with the community, you're done. Yeah. That's my view on these things, right? Yeah. So if you are one of those businesses, how come when you are a business, you have a quarterly review, you have annual planning, you have all these people that think about like KPIs and goals and like earnings per share and like all of these things. Yeah. But as a content creator, you have none of that structure or none of that form, right? Okay. And I think usually the biggest thing for people doing this for the first time is like, oh shit, I don't think of my business as a business and I don't use the skills from that business. Like I don't use the skills or the language that those businesses use. So that would be the first thing. And I think it's very actionable. You could do that today. No, for sure. Yeah. And it's everything you're saying is everything that I've thought about and just like haven't done because I think it's the stuff that it's like foreign to me in that sense of like the business aspect. Totally. I get the creative side. I get the passion side. The business is where I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do.
But if anything, I feel like you're much more equipped than you put yourself to be. Yeah. Like because I mean, you've worked in sales. Yeah. Because all of that is just basically planning. Yeah. Having specific goals, and it's all about KPIs. And I mean, I'm sure you have to have quarterly reports, reviews. Yeah.
You're also an athlete.
Yeah.
I'm super prejudiced towards athletes. I am because you train and you understand delayed gratification. Yeah. In a sense, I don't know. Right. Well, but the thing is like you're putting in the work. Yeah. And again, this is I'm biased towards them, but not every athlete is the same either. You have like the crazy maniacal Kobe's of the world, the mama mentality of the world, and then you have people that are just like
just naturally gifted. And then they get by.
By the way, we see that in content creation all the time. Yeah. They're just so good and so funny and so whatever. Yeah. But then you're like, you're never gonna build an empire because you're just like you don't care. Yeah. Oh, 100%. We see that all the time, actually.
Yeah. It's like a waste of talent. I'm like, what is wrong with you? I saw like the Johnny Manziel like story, and I was like, oh my god, you could have been great, and you saw it, like you just didn't want it.
Yeah.
I love that you brought a Texas reference. By the way, Alex. Call her daddy. What's Alex's last name?
I don't know.
Alex Cooper. Yeah, exactly. She's also a soccer player.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's the competitive nature. It's the wanting to be good. It's the wanting to win that has really, like, driven me. But it's also, like, bad. I'm like, I see another video pop off and I'm like, I'm better than that, I'm like, I definitely get envious of other people and be like, how can I be better than that? Or like, man, I want to, I want my video to look like that. And like, it drives me in that sense. But I'm looking around all the time. So it's like, I look around and compare too much where I need to just stay in my lane and make the stuff. I think at the beginning, I really was looking like my head was on a swivel all the time and constantly comparing myself to others and being like, oh, well, everyone's doing this, I'm just going to stop, or like someone made video way better than I did, then I'm just not going to do it anymore.
Do you meditate?
Getting into it though. Yeah. I just did a breathwork class from this girl that like slid into my DMs. She's like a breathwork teacher and it was incredible. I mean, it's just like breathing meditation,
Yeah, because it's funny. So our colleague Rob, and to many ways Brian himself as well, like they're hyper competitive.
Yeah.
Like they see competition and they're like, "Yo, we gotta."
I know. I literally
win.
like.
And
I'm listening to David Goggins to like
I'm actually
to make a video.
I'm actually a bit opposite of that.
Yeah.
Because I look at life as everybody has their own lane, and you could kind of build your own narrative on how you see fit. So. Instead of looking at, okay, what they have done that I haven't done, I think and I'm not saying that, it's one way is the right way, because I think it's important to understand what your colleagues and competitors are doing.
Oh, for sure.
It's totally important, but that should never sidetrack you from understanding the advantages and the weapons that you have.
Yeah.
And I think just from having this conversation with you for the last hour, there's so many ideas that I feel like, I see you having advantage over anybody else that might be making something, what appears to be similar.
Yeah. No, it's been a blessing and a curse to have so many ideas, but like to implement is the main goal. And that's just, something that I've always had to deal with in life. It's like, all right, let's take that first step towards it.
Yeah.
I'm very bullish. So I want to defend myself for being competitive. I think that
it's so competitive of you.
Yeah, so competitive. So actually, I'm so bullish and so excited for you because I think understanding and being competitive is super important. But I actually think the biggest unlock in life happens when you stop competing because you play your own game.
Yeah.
And you have the confidence to play your own game, right? So it's like, and it's paradoxical, but like that's so like for me that's been like that's so true for me where it's like cool, I study all these other things, but in actuality and understanding all these other things, but you let go of that and then you start playing your own game where you're like it doesn't matter, right?
Totally.
And then that's when things really start to unlock because you're not trying to recreate or outdo, you're doing your own thing.
Yeah.
What else are you into outside of creating content? What's something that you're into that you don't share?
Oh, that I don't share?
Yeah.
Honestly, I share pretty much everything. I like expressing myself in different ways. So like I really do want to get more into fashion, showcasing more of my outfits, maybe even making. I had a sewing machine when I was like 7 years old and like the sewing center of Manhattan is something that I'm like, okay, I need to take a class, like maybe this is something that I want to do on the side or like just like express myself in that way. But I always show that. And then sports, like I said, I play on rec leagues. I play like in a volleyball league. I play in a softball league, beach volleyball. That just makes me feel like a kid again. I have to do that stuff. It just
What do you play in the city?
So I play in like a rec volleyball league right now in Nolita. Beach volleyball in Brooklyn Bridge Park in the summers. And then Williamsburg for softball.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. And then like running, right? I ran the New York City Marathon. And then now with Strava being like an ambassador, they want us to like run all these different races. So I literally have to run the United Half Marathon in 4 weeks. Yeah. And I've gone on 2 3-mile runs since the marathon.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it's going to be hard. But yeah, I like to stay active. My mom was a coach, so I just grew up in that environment.
That's amazing.
I have an older brother. I think my dad wanted 2 sons, so it's like I played all sports. I did whatever my brother did, so it was like throwing a football before I like picked up a Barbie, So I've always been a tomboy. Yeah.
I mean, shit. Like sports is it's a huge market.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like again, thinking about those 5-year goals and stuff like that. What does that look like? And I love, like, I had a partnership with Nike that was just like huge, like so incredible. How do I keep on making that reoccurring?
Right.
I think I've had these pops and it's been really exciting, but again, it's the 5 year, it's the looking at the future that I've just not like failed at, but just
Right.
have struggled with.
Can you walk me through your series that you have right now? So you have Solo Day.
I have like a solo day series. I mean, they're kind of like all over the place. Like the things that I do consistently, I do like a weekend roundup. So that's like posted on Thursdays or Fridays of like things to do in New York City on the weekends. I have a solo day series. So like, here's your perfect solo day in New York City. Those are like the two main consistent ones that I feel like this year have been popping off pretty well. I'll do like cool spots to take photos in New York City because I always like, I have a good eye. I can like see certain things and I'm like, oh, that usually takes off with like tourists and stuff. But yeah, those are like my main two that are consistent.
What's your active lifestyle series where you're checking out Lion's Den, you're going to check out Stretch Lab, you're going to check out, like, that's not you like trying to make a business opportunity. That's a natural extension of everything you've told me. I would invest in that.
Totally. I know, Brian, I've had the 5 workouts that I did in New York City today or like something that. I've had that on. I have like a giant butcher paper that I just write stuff on in my apartment. And yeah, those are the things that's like, okay. And then I get sidetracked and then, my mind goes somewhere else or my attention goes somewhere else.
I mean, that's a Peloton partnership. That's
Peloton.
That's a class.
I love that I keep saying that and you're like, I'm a Strava ambassador. Yeah. So you know that we're on the same level.
For sure.
So the question is, how do you make that into a long-term partnership, not specific one-offs that are not ad hoc?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been pops, it's been great partnerships like that, and then it's like back to the Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
And like that's where doubt creeps in. That's where like, when it's quiet, that's when like everything starts to like come in.
Because again, it's for a lot of these brands, it's also like, okay, how do we find new faces? How do we have like fresh people come in so that we could rehash and revisit and start new conversations? But you as a business, like, you have like top line that you need to hit. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, you can't just keep doing these ad hoc. And also from your community's perspective, it doesn't seem like a genuine partnership if it's just like a one-off that you did.
Cohesive, right.
Totally, yeah.
So maybe so going back to the conversation about an agent versus a manager, an agent might say, yo, that deal, we need that right now, so you have to do it. But a manager might be like, yo, if it's an ad hoc situation, I might say no to that right now because and go back to them and say, yo, is there a way for us to make this into a year-long partnership?
Totally.
At the end of the day, if you put in so much effort and energy into creating this piece of content and you get, minimal views or crickets, like it does have an effect on your ego and, your drive to continuously do this. But sometimes you need to do that in order for you to tap into a different market. I say that to say like, yo, right now, people are going to continuously ask you, it's like, yo, keep giving me recommendations, places that I could take photos, which is great, which I think is something that provides utility and it helps you grow. But that's easily replaceable. Yeah. Like another creator could come. Of
course.
And do something similar.
Totally.
And then people will just move on to the next person, right?
Yeah.
But what's like a world-class advantage that you have? I mean, just speaking with you, like, yo, what? Texan, Mexican girl who's an athlete, like, yo, who's vulnerable, who hasn't dated, who hasn't been in a relationship in 12 years. Like, yo, these are all gems that I'm like, yo, that's only something that you could do. You know what I mean? And again, it might not get the results that you want now. Of course, you have to complement it with the content that brings you results.
Yeah.
But how do you start inserting those type of content in there so that, when you make that transition into starting a new series is not foreign to your audience?
So how do you identify, so the prompt is, how do you identify the key pillars of who you are that you want to invest in and really make your brand?
Yeah.
And then how do you work with as many, on a programming standpoint, how do you program with as many concentric circles as possible to ultimately get you to that path.
Totally. Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah.
think that's what it is.
Yeah. And to give you some background on like why I've been hired for certain brand partnerships, because a lot of them are activations happening in New York City.
Okay.
So I get hired a lot for limited time pop-ups or limited time activations.
Okay.
Because they know I can get the word out real quick. And then again, that partnership just doesn't continue on. Or like Peloton's partnership was just to get the word out for a holiday. You know, so like what does that look like in terms of integrating that partnership into my life? And there was a point where I started to feel like an ad monkey, where I was like, I'm just like doing this ad to get a bag, and it just doesn't like, it doesn't feel like me, you know? And so how can I work with brands that are more aligned to my lifestyle, which are a lot, but make it authentic? Because I felt like my audience is going to start hating me for like what I'm putting out there right now.
How many deals did you do last year?
Oh, I don't know.
If you
I
had
could
to
like
guess.
have to count what I did last year. Shit, let's see. I think about like 30.
30.
I would
Okay.
say, yeah.
What was your smallest deal? What was your biggest deal?
Smallest deal is probably like 2,000. Biggest deal that I did last year was 20K with NYCFC.
Okay.
Yeah, for 4 videos.
Right.
Peloton last year was also 15 for 3 videos.
Yeah.
But that's typically what I've ranged in. My rate right now, what my agent sends out, is 7,500
Per video?
per video.
Okay.
Gotcha.
And what kind of usage rates?
I guess it just like all depends on the like what they're looking for. 30, 90 days. I don't know exactly what the number is.
30 or 90 day exclusivity.
Like, yeah, they change it based on what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And do they put ads against
Yeah.
it?
Do you whitelist it for them?
I guess it's what's involved in the contract. I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
I'm bad at that.
These are the things that like you should have a manager think about. But so much of it is like you could look at a $20,000 for 4 videos and say, "Oh my God, this is amazing! This is the best thing ever." And then you
That's
could
what
say,
I thought.
or you could say, "Dude, $20,000. If you guys hire an agency, that's not even covering the creative director on one project for one video."
Yeah.
Right.
Which
So
is
how
so
do you
wild.
so how do you position yourself not as a as a creator, you are a creative director.
Yeah.
You're a producer. You're talent.
Yeah.
And your channel is distribution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So how do you change that conversation so that when they're coming to you, it's not, "Hey, can you make me 4 videos?" It's like, I can help distribute. Are you trying to distribute on my platform?
Yeah.
Are you trying to have me produce content for you? Like, and all of those things are different.
Totally. And it's so wild just to have this conversation now, thinking like I didn't know any of that when I first started, and wasn't thinking like that, and didn't think to go that route or to like be like,
And that's what we're trying to
knowledgeable
have
in
this
that sense.
be.
No, I know exactly. So for the people listening that are looking to start into this creator space, like the things to think about, there's so much.
Yeah, so like let's just list a few. Number 1 is like obviously price. That's the most obvious, I think.
Yeah.
Exclusivity. Is there category exclusivity in that?
I had no idea what that was. Like, what is this?
Yeah, so
you know?
you say yes to Lululemon, that means you can't do anything with Nike.
Yeah.
Well, or maybe you can do something with Nike if Nike is just your shoes.
Totally.
And maybe it's just your athletic shoes versus, okay, you want to do something with Prada.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And then it's like,
Yeah.
for how long?
Yeah.
Right? And then is it, I'm making stuff for you so that you can run as an ad because you actually need, like there's photographers and videographers that make stuff.
Yeah.
Am I doing that? Or am I actually doing something else? You know, there's all these different things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one instance recently was I did something with the New York Rangers, and they asked me to pull up to an event, create content, and it was like a recap of a day at the game.
Yeah.
In the contract, it stated that they own worldwide exclusivity to my content.
Yeah.
Perpetual use
in any way possible. So, and that was an immediate red flag for me, because if it was they were hiring me as a talent and they're shooting it and they're distributing it on their channels, sure, that's pretty common.
Yeah.
But you're asking me to produce it, shoot it, and distribute it on my channel.
Yeah.
But you have perpetual right to my content on my channel. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And the rights to adapt that content and put
And
it
however
anywhere
you see
want.
fit. That doesn't make any sense. So if like James Dolan wants
just
to
rock
run it
you.
on the Dome in Vegas, like technically you could do it. So I was like, yo, that doesn't make any sense. And I called it out, and we had a back and forth with their legal team. And their representatives were kind of befuddled, like, yo, this is just standard practice for us. And I was like,
yeah,
I
well,
understand.
there's so many
it's
people
standard
just
practice.
signing that.
Yeah, for
Me.
you guys when they visit the stadium and you guys decide to put the content on your own channels. But I don't think you understand that you're putting this on my channel and it's my distribution channel, right?
Yeah.
So having those type of conversations and yeah, like I actually do want to put this out there that like, yo, if they want exclusivity on something, that's actually that should be a non-starter, especially if you're a content creator. Now, if they're hiring you as a talent, different conversation. But if they want you to create content and they want exclusivity and perpetuity, like, yo, that's a non-starter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's the level up from what you just talked about with, you know how there was a call to action that went out wrong?
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, I'll fix it. And she's like, no, you're going to get paid to fix that, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's the same thing. The level up from that on your NYFC deal, for example, would be, hey, cool. So like, let me figure out what the bag is. So you want 4 videos?
Yeah.
All right, cool. You could have 1 with all these other things.
Yeah.
You have rights to run it as an ad. You have that. And then if they say no, that's where you have leverage where like, you can give on certain things. Like another thing that we do that's very uncommon, especially for most creators starting, is like we just ask like, what are you trying to do?
Totally.
What makes you look good?
Exactly.
We literally say, how can we help? What makes you look good?
Yeah.
What are the KPIs that you're trying to hit?
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
I always ask that
Yeah.
too. Well,
So-
when I was dealing my own things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But because so many people are like, okay, so what's important to you? Is it 4 videos?
Yeah.
Or is it 1 video that we can use as an ad to do all these other things that
Totally.
we'd normally have to hire an agency to do?
Yeah.
So like, how can we figure that out? I think in the beginning you're just happy that anyone wants
oh
to
my
work
God.
with you.
Big time.
But-
I was like, yeah, like had
Yeah.
my firstborn.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
care. Like this is exciting, you know?
Yeah.
And
But-
so yeah, having that knowledge is so critical.
Yeah.
So what's next? What do you plan on doing?
Gosh, I mean, like now I want to go back home and just like I want to clear my schedule and be like write out all my SMART goals. Like I said, I venturing into the Instagram world, really building up my Instagram there is going to be something that I'm going to be focusing on. But I think being strategic about how I'm going to look at partnerships for long term. So because we're at the beginning of the year, I want to see like what I can do and put that like just in front of me. I think that's going to be really important to list them out strategically in front of me that I can see every day.
For sure. Yeah.
And by the way, like we really mean it. However we could help, I think we're all on text now. You can hit us whenever.
Yeah.
Let's
No,
up
I'm
anytime.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just holla.